What's going on, coaches? Coach Korea back for the second part of the multiple 50 stack install, and we're going to talk about. It's going to be another segment on D line play. Um, in the first segment, we were showing you just base alignments and base techniques and alignments that we use. In this segment, we're going to talk about how we build the fronts, why we build the fronts. I'm going to get into those buzz points, and then we're going to talk about those techniques that I kind of mentioned in the first one, as far as our head up technique, our shaded technique, and the last part of that is our jet technique, which is when we know they're going to pass the ball, what we use and teach the kids, and show you some of the tools we give them to give ourselves options. So the reason we build the fronts and why is because it allows us to have flexibility. Flexibility is a big deal on defense, especially when you're playing a hard 8-man front defense. You have to have some flexibility, so therefore you got to keep the teaching the same. So those three parts in the interior, are learning the same ways. And when I get to the last bullet, I'll explain how they're interchangeable. It gives us options. So the reason we have different kind of fronts, because we may not be the biggest team, we may not be the smallest team. You have to have these options in any system you run. So that's an important piece to why we build fronts, the flexibility part of it and the ability to have options. It gives us tools to work with. Whatever scheme you choose, at the end of the day, you try to use what best suits your kids. And anything that suits my kids, I'm going to make sure that me personally have the ability to teach it at a high level, and I'm going to give them all the tools necessary and required to be successful in what we do. Those are important things to me. And lastly, like I said before, they're interchangeable parts. Because we teach alignment and techniques, or alignment versus techniques, all three of those guys up front learn the same way. So they're going to learn the exact same techniques. Now, the type of player may be different, but the technique part of it won't change. So therefore, in situations, we could take the faster end and put them at nose, because the techniques are the same. Once you understand our verbiage and how we label things, which I'm not saying the way you guys label things are wrong, I'm just saying the buzzwords we use and what makes sense for us, they can easily play the other two positions because they're all learning the same way and doing the same things over and over and over again. Once again, it's just like offense. Anything we do is going to be based on repetitions, and I'm going to always bank on that we do what we do better than you do what you do. So those are the key points to why we have to build fronts and use different kind of looks. And then when I'm getting into the fronts, I'll get into the techniques, the head up technique, the shade technique, the jet technique. Let's get right into the presentation. Enough of that. Let's get to my strong point. So just to go over what we talked about last time, our base alignment is going to be a nose, which is 0-0 technique, and 2-4 techniques, head up, tackle players. Okay. I showed you the movements, our base movements, open, close, pinch, and our jacks alignment. Now, when we line up like this, we have the ability to be a movement front, but we also can teach a 2-gap, where we're going to play through the head of that man and try to play off both gaps. Now, that's a style of play you can use, but I wouldn't suggest it as a young coach looking for something to work. I would suggest once you teach the base fronts, how we get to the movements. Now, if you're not a team that's moving very well and you're not getting to the proper gaps and it's not working for you, there's a way you could cheat yourself there. And that's by using the shade alignments, where, let's say the tight end is over here. We can play with a shaded nose, with a 5 technique end, and a condensed end. We will call this over. We're going to rotate the D-line over towards the tight end. Now, when we're in this alignment, these are straight one gap entries. We're going to get our hands on people. We're going to try to get our hands inside, get under them, lift them up, get rid of them, play our gap, look for the football. So this puts us in an advantageous position, we feel, against, if we kind of guessing or through game plan that they're a hard run to the tight end team, we will get in our over alignment. And that's going to be with a shaded nose, a 5 technique end, and a 3 technique end. That's going to be over. If we want to roll it the other way because we see something, like they put the strength into the boundary and they're going to put receivers to the field, and we want to gain an advantage for our will linebacker out in coverage or your end, whatever, however you want to call it, your defensive end, if you're playing more of a 50 type deal, we can have an under alignment, what we would call under, where we'd roll it away. All right, and then everybody will get their split off of that. That is a per game plan deal where, once again, it's the same technique. He's going to play through the center. He's going to play up in the C gap. He becomes a B gap player. Never further than a yard deep. They're always going to get their hands, especially in a shaded alignment, over the man they're on. Their key will be that man. So they need to get their hands on him, get under him, try to lift them, stay square in the gap, get rid of them, get to the football. Chase the football from, if the ball's going this way, let's get down that hill line. Make sure we're taking away all cutbacks. Remember, the key is always getting your hands on the man. If it's a man key, get your hands on him. We want to strike under the chest plate, keep our eyes through his throat. Make sure we try to lift them shoulder pads up over his head, staying square in our gap, fighting pressure with pressure. So I gave you the over, the under. And this particularly is my favorite one. Is our bear alignment, where we're going to play with 2-3 techniques. This is a complete pressure alignment. You can pick a side or have him, in this situation, 2 gap. So that way we could allow those guys to fit off the front. Now, you have to understand that when we build these fronts or how we apply these fronts, they're going to be coordinated with the linebacker fits. Obviously, we're going to get to that in the next parts of this series, but their movements have purpose, and we're just not doing it to paint a picture. We're doing it for a reason. We're doing it because it's going to be advantageous to us some kind of way. So that's what we call bear. That would be our bear alignment. In all three fronts, you have to get your hands on people. Absolutely. Our last front, and I got this from MH Coach, and I loved it and have used it at certain points, is what we will call a cover look. We're going to cover up the tackle and guard to the tight end side, and we're going to cover up the backside guard, and obviously everything around it will be built off of it. In this situation here, which we have taught before, is we probably 2-gap in that situation. We could 2-gap from that situation. We also could 2-gap from our base alignment, but that's dependent on the style players you have. If they're bigger, slower players, you may want to consider this, especially if they're very strong, and you think you would have an advantageous positioning by playing them in a 2-gap technique. Now, that's probably got to be a whole nother video of another defense, but we're going to talk about that at some point too, because I think it's a great way to play defense. And everybody says, oh, you can't do that with kids. Bullshit. You can do whatever you want with kids. It's on you on how you teach it and present it. They can definitely do this, especially with the new modern techniques and the modern way of 2-gapping. We can do it, but I don't want to get too far off a topic here, spewing my bullshit. But so we gave you the over, the under, the bear, and our cover alignments. Okay, now all those words may mean to other people something else. This is what it means to us, and really all that matters is what it means to us. So this is how we refer to those alignments. Now I'm going to get into the techniques that we use with those alignments. We've talked about head up. We've talked about shaded. When we're head up, okay, if we're just up the field in our base alignment, we're looking to get our hands on the man we're over and play the gap we're responsible for. Ball's coming to us, get rid of him, play the ball. Ball's going away, get rid of him, play behind the football down the heel line. That's what we're going to do. It's still one gap attack in our head up alignment. Okay? If we're moving, we are going to move to the man's hip. Just refresh it off what we're talking about. The way we're moving to, or the V of his neck. An attack through the V of his neck. Now we're responsible for the gap we are moving to. Okay? In our shaded alignments, we're going to get our hands on the man we're over. The center still got to get his hands and get inside of this center, get under him, and play this A gap. He will be a B gap player here. He'd be a C gap player here. Now you see it's doing the same thing as the open and close, except we're just lining to it. So if we're slower, a little bit bigger, this may make more sense for us. Flexibility, giving us options, tools in the toolbox. Okay? The techniques don't change. Just because it's shaded, now he absolutely knows that's the man he's getting his hands on. That's the man he's getting his hands on. That's the man he's getting his hands on. So it's still the same thing, and it becomes interchangeable. All right? So that's would be our shaded technique. The first one was our head up technique. Second one was our shaded technique. When we're in a jet technique, and we call jet when we know it's past. We absolutely know it's past, and we're going to let these guys go. They could go up the field, the yard deep, all the techniques that I was stressing in the first two parts is off. We're going to go after the quarterback and get after it. They're going to line up in a little narrower stance, and they're going to get up the field and get after it. This is when we're going to let them go. We will use jet a lot when we're in our base cover 3, only bringing 4, because we're banking on one of these 3 getting there plus the 4, so it makes it like when we want to bring 5. So they're going to be allowed to go up the field, get there however you get there, play with reckless abandon. So this is the second part to the multiple 50 stack install. This is part 2 of the D-line play, building the fronts. To the next time.